But the overall goal though, like outside of just like internal company stuff, like the goal is to provide more jobs like to undocumented people. Like that's been the goal of this. So
and have you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Prepare? So Maya is the founder of Prepare, which is the project he was working on when he was in our summer accelerator a couple of years ago. So he's also UCLA alumni. I know there's been a lot of changes since we last spoke. So first, just tell us more about yourself, and then tell us more about Prepare, and we'll continue the conversation from there.
yeah. Also, I pinned myself. I think that's what you were referring to, Joanna. I'm not sure if everybody is able to see me, but I try to pin myself.
Perfect.
Thank
you.
I was able to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So hey everyone, my name is Juan Hernandez. I'm the founder and CEO of Prepare LLC, and today I run entrepreneurship programs for undocumented students at the university level, trying to expand to the high school level. But my overall mission, so the reason why I'm building this company is because when I was a student at UCLA, I was actually undocumented, so I didn't have any work authorization. So during my time, I didn't have the same access to internships, fellowships like some of my peers. So that's my overall mission with this company. So I envision that within 10 years, I can provide more internship opportunities, job opportunities for undocumented students.
Awesome. And so I know, as I mentioned, I know that a lot has changed. Prepare pivoted a lot during the accelerator a couple years ago, and you even changed even more. So you can just kind of talk about what that journey looked like and where Prepare started and now where it is at this point.
Yeah, definitely. So when I was going into my last year at UCLA, like I mentioned, I didn't have work authorization, but I started thinking of like, what was I going to do after I graduate, right? So I went to this career fair, and a lot of people would tell me, hey, don't go to a career fair, you're not going to get hired. But I was stubborn, I was like, I'm gonna go to this career fair, I'm gonna still try to get a marketing internship. So I went to this career fair. I landed an internship in marketing with a company that wanted to hire me. At that time, I was blowing up on TikTok. I had a few videos hit like 500,000 views and stuff. But they weren't able to hire me, not because of my skill, not because of my talent, but because of my legal status. So it was there where I was like, hey, what if I can actually solve this problem? So the first thing that I tested was building a recruitment agency for undocumented students. Then I built a freelance platform, 2 months later, where I would be the middle person between a undocumented student, and an organization, and sort of connect them. And I was able to help 6 students make $2,000 through that. Applied when I applied to the Startup UCLA Summer Accelerator, I pivoted into like a questions and answers platform, kind of like a Reddit for immigrant experiences. But the number one question that came up was, how do I make money in the US if I'm an immigrant, if I'm undocumented? And then, it's kind of cliche, but I was actually sitting like at my lunch one time, and the solution came to me. I was like, where do job opportunities really come from for just in general for the community? And they all come from other entrepreneurs. So I was like, what if I can actually just help students that are in my position start a business and build, an incubator program, entrepreneurship program. So then I tested that. I went to 2 universities. So I don't charge students for my programs. I charge universities. Went to two community colleges. And I landed my biggest contracts that I've ever received, and I started making money a little bit, and I was like, this could potentially work. And that was all last year. I did 2 pilot programs. I went to San Francisco. I presented at some of these colleges. So I started to find like the actual core problem of these undocumented students that wanted to start a business after they graduate. So now this year, I really just doubled down on that. And yeah, that's overall like how everything has built. So I started off with, let me solve the problem at its core of helping undocumented students get jobs. But I realized that if I just focus on helping undocumented students start companies, I think 5, 10, 15 years down the line, I'll be able to collaborate with them to provide those internship opportunities that I wish I had when I was a student because of my status.
Awesome. Congratulations. It's so exciting to hear that you're now in this full-time, running your business full time and having some successes and traction. You mentioned that you're running like an incubate, you're helping other people. What kinds of businesses are you helping people build that you're working with?
Yeah, so in my most recent incubator that actually finished on Tuesday, we had a pitch competition. We had a student starting a beauty product. She got her first 4 clients within my incubator, and I was really happy for her. I had another student that was getting his electrician certificate. And he got his first client. He made $40, and I was like really happy because he's a very shy person. And then I had an AI. There was this student filmmaker that wanted to use AI to help other people create stories with AI tools like 11 Labs, all the newer tools out there. So that was the third one. So I guess like it's really a mixture of like products, services, and well, right now I'm keeping it general. I'm not really focused on like, oh, I'm gonna do only products or services, but those are just some of the ones that students tend to start.
Awesome. And I remember when you were in the accelerator that social media, TikTok was a huge part of how you were building community, building customers, doing that outreach. Is that still a part of what you do? And can you talk a little bit of the importance of that that was for you in terms of building and growing your business and finding customers and clients?
I think one of my goals is to be the number one source of undocumented entrepreneurship, like online, through social media. Like I want whenever somebody that is undocumented or an immigrant that is looking to start a business in the US, I want to be the number one person to show up. And the only way to get there is by posting content. So like today I have over 30,000 followers like across all my social media platforms, and I get like 200,000 impressions on my TikTok, my YouTube, my podcast, and they're all around just my journey building this company. Like it's nothing else. I kind of just share, like on YouTube I share, okay, these are the 5 lessons that I learned this week, because on Tuesdays, every single Tuesday, I have a check-in with myself on like what is working, what is not. I also started hiring an assistant, so I share lessons on that. So my strategy online is just, I realize that I am the brand. Like I am the undocumented entrepreneur building a company, and I feel like as people are searching this online, they'll be able to find me because there's a gap there. Like, I'm the only one there. If you go on TikTok, you look up undocumented entrepreneurship, I will show up. And you look it up on YouTube, my goal is to be there. And yeah, I mean, because I posted on different platforms, like on LinkedIn, I have a newsletter, on podcast, I do a voice, on YouTube, I do videos. I hope to expand to also help other people get more marketing. Like for example, like for this pitch competition, it was my first time doing like a live stream on Twitch and on TikTok, and we had 98 viewers, like just watching the pitches. And then I start thinking of like, how can I then use this to help other students? Well, it's marketing. The more viewers I have in a live pitch competition, the more people will have exposure. I could also use some of the donations there for future stipends. So kind of using social media as a way to provide more exposure to other people, but also build my brand around, being the number one source of undocumented entrepreneurship based on stories. And that story that I'm starting off with is mine.
Cool. Yeah. That's great. And it's great to know and hear more about how you built your community, the group of people who you want to impact and support the most. I know that there were so many pivots and twists and turns in your journey. I think the one thing that stayed constant is that you've always known who the group, your impacts, your beneficiaries, who you wanted the work to touch and make and support. I think the thing that took a while for you to figure out was who is your paying customer. And we've been talking a lot with our students about the difference between the beneficiary, the user, like in all of those different, who's interacting and who's paying and who's using it, who's benefiting. Can you talk a little bit about how did you figure that out finally, now that you have some paying clients and you're building that while still keeping in mind who you want the social impact to be centered on?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I launched a minimum viable product, so like in August of last year, June, July, August. Yeah, like June, July, when I was still in my marketing job, I was working at a startup actually. And I had the idea of like, okay, if I want to solve this problem, how can I just test it? What can I do today to test it? So I was like, why don't I just launch a course, right? Like I had like around 150 emailing listing subscribers based on people that subscribe through my TikTok, and I had all their emails. And now I have like 20,000 on TikTok. So I was like, if I launch something, this is literally my target audience. And if I can get validation, I can try to think about how to make money from this. But okay, so I launched this course. It was $150. But I read a lot of books. So I found out of this strategy that it was called the 80-60-40 discount method, where like I would give my first 5 clients 80% off, next 5 clients 60% off, next 5 clients 40% off. So all I did first I created the course. I took a month to create the course. I had like $200, to do this. So I created the course, help me market this. So we send out 4,000 direct messages, emails, and TikTok messages, until one time I got blocked, like on those social medias, for sending too many messages. And within 2 months, I was like 100 community members, and that was just based on like social media and people that had tuned in to my journey. And I was like, okay, so that was phase 1, and then phase 2 was like, how do I get bigger contracts? I was like, you know what, like if I can just get like one contract, whatever, like it would be great. And I ended up like working with like 6 community colleges that had undocumented students that wanted what I was doing. And I was able to provide a workshop. I got a lot of feedback. And then like a community college told me, because most of my contracts were only like for 5 to 10 students, like $1,000 contracts. And then another, like a community college told me like, how does this look like for 40 students? I was so uncomfortable saying that price, because I started taking photos as a high school, like at UCLA, to pay for some of my school expenses. And I usually charge like $10, $15. And then once I got that contract, I took that same strategy into this year, where I'm like, I'm only doing these amount of contracts and I'm only working with these clients. And so far it's been working. So it all came from just, let's test it. Let's take 2 months to test it. If this succeeds, let's try to get more feedback. I was one community college away, like a person away from figuring out like, okay, this is kind of like their budget. So why don't you create something for this? And then that's how I landed to like my entrepreneurship boot camps and incubators. And now I'm not changing anything. I'm just focused on like, okay, how do I land more of these clients, but also how do I make it better? How do I make the product better and not pivot anymore? Like, let's just do this for 1 year. And I think that was my biggest problem. Like when I was doing this 2-3 years, because I think I was looking at it from like a side hustle point of view when I was still a student, when I was still had my full-time job. And now I look at it on like, hey, if I don't get my next contract, I don't have my rent, So now I look at it like that, and it allows me to, just double down and make it better. But yeah, testing, get feedback. I would go like two months from people saying no to me, and then I get an email. They're like, hey, like we want to do this. We love what you do, and so far right now, it's working. I mean,
great. As you were talking about sort of even the business model, how you now have 8 colleges in the door who are paying you to do the work that you're doing. I think early in your process, there were people that said to you like, oh, this is just a nonprofit, just be a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. Like you have a social impact mission, just like get grants to do it. How did you make the decision to just like, and I think I even heard you say that maybe once, you were like, I don't know. And we figured out a way to monetize this and make it a business, a social enterprise, not a nonprofit organization that depends on grants and sponsorships and donor funding. How did you, make that decision to be like, no, I'm going to keep this course and I want this to be a business and a company? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, so when I quit my job last year, I was like, all right, like this is the last thing I'm gonna try. And if this doesn't work, I'm not gonna move forward. Or maybe I could turn into a nonprofit. But I gave myself like one last chance. I was like, okay, this is the last chance. If you're gonna try this, go ahead and try it. And then I think from there, like, I think the hardest part was just making that decision that it is gonna be a for-profit. And and making that decision when there's a lot of unknowns. Like, I didn't know if people were going to buy this. I didn't know if community colleges had the budget for something like this. And now that I have a little bit more data, like, I'm confident to say that, like, 5 years from now, I hope to launch my own accelerator program for undocumented people and invest into money, like, where it's equity based. But it was also a time of, like, looking at other, like, entrepreneurship programs that were for profits. So kind of like taking my environment and looking at, like, a Y Combinator, looking at, like, Techstars. I also am a big believer of, like, I think I can make this program really, really good if I have the funding for it, to bring on the great speakers, to bring on, like, a tax person to talk to these students. And I understand that it all takes money. So I don't know if that answered the question, but I guess I just first made the decision that it was going to be a for-profit. I said it was my last opportunity, like, to make this happen. And then I think from there, I just tried. I was like, okay, let's just do this. And if it doesn't, then I'll reconsider. But I gave myself 1 year to do this as a full for-profit, and then kind of reevaluate if I am getting the results that I want and everything. And so far, I think that there's a huge need.
Okay, great. I'll ask probably one more question before opening it up for questions from our students. And so everyone, if you have questions already that you want to jot in the chat, feel free to go ahead. But also would love, you to also speak up and ask your questions to Juan directly. So keep that in mind over the next couple of minutes. Just going back to sort of your social media and, like, promotion and marketing that you've done, you talked about how TikTok was really helpful. I was wondering, we had all of our students make LinkedIn profiles for the first time because it's such a important networking tool in this space. And I know that you also utilize LinkedIn. Can you specifically talk a little bit about how you've used LinkedIn and how it's helped you and how you navigate that as a different type of platform that's specifically for professional networking?
Yeah, definitely. So, like I mentioned, I'm more focused on documenting my journey, rather than, like, creating. So I just share lessons. So I started a LinkedIn newsletter. One of my goals right now is to get to a net worth of $100,000, like, just publicly, as an undocumented entrepreneur. And that's, like, the reason for why people should subscribe to my newsletter. But that idea, it just came. I was like, you know what, like, I want to do something. I feel like the way that I view social media, or, like, just posting content about your journey, is like networking at scale, in a sense that, like, anybody can see it, and people can still see videos that you posted years ago, or posts that you made, and then they pop off. So I started a LinkedIn newsletter. I try to post every single 2 weeks, like, bi-weekly, and I just share lessons, or I share behind the scenes on what I'm doing. Right? Like I mentioned, the goal is to be number one. On every headline, I put undocumented entrepreneur, or I write down, like, I launched my first entrepreneurship program for undocumented students. So whenever somebody is searching for it, and I know a lot of people will search for it for the right people, I will show up. But that's really my strategy. And I guess I also use AI tools. So, like, I film a video for my YouTube channel, and then that video I record it with Otter.ai, which transcribes the video, and then use ChatGPT to train. And this is just recently, but, like, I use ChatGPT to I download all my previous articles, and then I put it into ChatGPT. I created my own AI assistant that will kind of give me, like, an outline for my next one whenever I give it a topic, and it just makes it easier. I just proofread it, and then I just post it. But my recommendation is, like, just post about your journey. I think a lot of people, I even started seeing this on TikTok recently, is, like, I think live streaming is a big thing right now. Like, I was looking at, like, a couple street vendors that literally just put a phone. They're selling literally, like, street corn, or they're selling tacos outside in the street, but they have their TikTok audience, and they're getting clients through live. And I feel like in the future, like, people they're going to be building brands based on that. So, my recommendation is just to share your journey, and then be consistent. And give it time. Like my newsletter, I started it like a year ago. Now I have like almost 500 subscribers on it, but it takes time, and trying to make it better, using the tools that you have. And the one thing that I don't do is like I don't share content on things that I haven't done. So that like I would never speak about this is how I built $1 million company, because I haven't done that. I just speak on like what it is that I did. And I think nobody can go, like, people can have different opinions on different things, but nobody can go against like my own experience. And you are the brand, and you are the experience. So I just suggest that you start there. And then there's other ways to like take a long form piece of content, like a LinkedIn newsletter that might be like an essay, and then feed it to ChatGPT, figure out a prompt so you can get like 5 LinkedIn posts, and then you post them, and you just kind of do a little, you got to find your workflow, but it takes time, it takes.
Yeah, I think it's helpful just to understand and visualize a little bit, like what are the different ways and tools and strategies to use LinkedIn. People use it in so many different ways. Mm-hmm. Some people use it and they're just like DMing people to connect and like trying to build their community, or they're posting the way that you are and creating sort of a brand and a personality for themselves, telling their story, especially, what you're working on is so personal to you. You are a direct beneficiary and participant and community member of the community that you are working to support and build this for. I guess one more question before we go to questions from the class is, you talked about the big goal is, you want to be the person for undocumented entrepreneurship on every platform. When people Google it, when people are looking for support, you're that person. On all the social media channels, and people are Googling, like that's like, and that's what you want to do. You want to scale up, right? And it sounds like impact as many people as possible. And you mentioned that $100,000, you have some financial goals in the short term. What is the sort of like growth goal? Like you mentioned that you're working with 8 community colleges. Are they all in California right now? In Los Angeles specifically? And do you have geographic growth goals that you're thinking of as you continue to get? How are you going to get to that 40 colleges this year that you mentioned? Geographically,
I only work with colleges in California because I did try to work with Chicago colleges. Like I met a dean through LinkedIn, actually. He reached out to me, which was pretty cool, just based on my newsletter. But I realized that like there's other things that come with working at another state or expanding to like another location, right? So for example, taxes, I don't know the taxes part. Would I get taxed more? How does that work? Do I need a CPA there? I don't know. So that's one thing that I learned when I had that like connection with, because I had a proposal with them, but then it got denied because my company wasn't registered for like 2 years in Chicago, so I couldn't really do that. So when I hit that, right now I'm only focused on California. But if we look at the grand scope of things, like there's approximately 140 colleges, like including UCs, including CSUs. So UCs there's 9, CSUs there's 23, community colleges there's 119. So if I can just get one client at every single, at least like this year, and I know I just say like it's just one client, but it's just like if I can launch one program, new students are gonna come every year, right? And then there's also fall and winter and spring semester, so there could be 3. Except that like right now I have 2 programs, and I think I just want to double down on one of them. I think having 2 is too much. I think if I had to make a prediction, I think it's none of those programs, and I think there's a program in between that is going to be more applicable to all the community colleges based on what students want. But yeah, so to get to 40, I just need to build my credibility with the ones that I already have and make it the best way possible, because a lot of these directors that hire me in all these colleges, they know each other. Like they know each other from the region, and they recommend each other. That's how I've been getting like new people to reach out to me. So I know that like with these 8 that I have lined up for the next few months, if I do just a great job, next year it will be easier. So I guess my North Star metric, if we're looking at it right now, is working with as many community colleges as possible. 120 is the total. I want to work with all of them. Now, how do I get there? Well, maybe I can do one thing that I started implementing that has been working really well is launching one program for 4 colleges in collaboration. So like it's a virtual program, but there's 4 colleges. I use all their logos. I get all the credibility from all these 4 colleges. And even though I may not be maximizing revenue, I am building that credibility. So like 1 year, 2 years from now, they will know me, because a lot of people don't know me right now. Like they don't know the work that I did. They don't know the pitch. But that's that right now. 5 years from now, I do hope to expand to 5 other states. And then in 5 years, launch like an accelerator program where, like I said, like it would be equity based. I would have some revenue. Then I'll become sort of like an investor, and then continue to doing these introductory, incubator programs for now, like for revenue. But my time and space would be in the accelerator and really just helping. So because there's so many problems. Like if you're undocumented, even though you build a company, like how do you retire? But the overall goal though, like outside of just like internal company stuff, like the goal is to provide more jobs like to undocumented people. Like that's been the goal of this. So even though we will be launching like an accelerator program where we're going to be in other states, I think at the core of everything is going to be job creation for the community. So I think that's what success looks like to me. So like like there's many things that I think about, like maybe for my next incubator program I can have 2 interns that are undocumented students at certain community colleges that I do a partnership. So now it's like I'm helping them out. These students are building. So everything is about just building that job ecosystem within the undocumented community, and I think that's the most exciting part of it all. And I know there's a big need.